Hello everyone, and welcome to the Quick Thoughts Digimon Ghost Game video. This time I'm going to be talking about the latest episode, which was episode 32, Who Are You? So in this episode, just a quick recap before I begin, we have Gamamon agreeing to meet with a friend, but while he's out, an imposter Gamamon shows up and starts hanging out with Hiro. Gamamon returns, and Hiro is kind of confused, like, oh, weren't you just here? You've been here all day. Then the next day, when Gamamon also agrees to meet with the friend still doesn't show up, but when he returns to Hiro, Hiro doesn't recognize him, and Gamamon's already there, and we can see that he's been replaced by Betsumon. Gamamon ends up trying to look for help, but nobody actually recognizes him as being Gamamon, including his friend Clockmon, and all of Hiro's other friends and other Digimon. We then have the reveal that it's Betsumon, and Betsumon are actually trying to take over the entire dorm, so that's the motivation for Betsumon stealing the identity of all the Digimon, and we already have Jellymon being replaced as well, and Betsumon say that she was easily replaced because she's out all the time. Then Hiro feels sorry for the real Gamamon, who is being an imposter Gamamon, and ends up inviting the real Gamamon to a picnic with the Betsumon Gamamon. Then Gamamon gets emotional, starts eating chocolate, and so does the Betsumon Gamamon, but Betsumon can't actually keep up with the chocolate eating, and Hiro realizes that Gamamon is the real Gamamon, and then Gamamon evolves to Kanawaisemon and defeats Betsumon, and then Clockmon weirdly shows up and says, aha, I knew that it was all because of Betsumon, despite not actually helping. So overall, I'm not really a big fan of this episode, but there were a few aspects of this episode that I actually liked. First of all, this episode was quite emotional and quite creepy, for the reason being that when I was a kid, I had this reoccurring dream where there were lots and lots of copies of me, but nobody actually could recognize me. So it actually was kind of weird to see this episode be existing, because it was that recurring dream that I had when I was younger. So there was that was quite creepy. Another thing I liked is the fact that we had Meicoomon in this episode as a previous victim of Betsumon, and said that he eventually just will disappear, and then he does disappear. So Meicoomon honestly can't take a break in this franchise, didn't have too much of a fun time in Digimon Adventure Tri, and sort of ceased to exist in this episode. He just vanished. It was, however, interesting seeing Meicoomon have a masculine voice rather than a feminine one, and I really did appreciate having Meicoomon be in something else. It's nice when we see these Digimon who existed in some big way in one part of the franchise, but has more or less faded out of existence other than that. So it's nice that we're bringing back Meicoomon, even though, like, I just want Meicoomon to have a happy story, and this episode was not a happy story for Meicoomon. So then we have the issue that I kind of mentioned in my recap. We have Clockmon, who, it is nice that we still see Clockmon, who was the baddie in the first episode, and then they eventually became good, and now kind of hangs out with the group and is kind of a good guy, and it was nice to see that character come back, but I don't know why it was in the last part of the episode just to show up saying that he knew that it was Clockmon all along. When Gamamon came to talk to Clockmon earlier, Clockmon was like, oh, you a new Digimon? Oh, you're not Gamamon. You're not Gamamon at all. That was kind of weird that he would then claim to know what was going on the entire episode. Something else that I wasn't sure about in this episode was the fact that we know that Digimon can have multiple versions of that species. We even saw in this episode there are multiple Betsumon. We've seen that there are multiple Hawkmon. We see that multiple Digimon do exist of the same species. So I'm not really sure what Gamamon actually was. He was the real Gamamon. When everyone was saying, oh, who are you? I don't know this Digimon. What's your name? It was kind of weird, like, what was he looking like to them? I know that he was still Gamamon, but we don't actually see what Gamamon looked like to them. Because if he was just a Gamamon, wouldn't the characters just say, oh, it's another Gamamon, or mention that in some way? Like, it wouldn't be weird for the characters to see another Digimon of the same species. Like, oh, Gamamon, is this a friend of yours? It also looks like Gamamon. Nobody addressed that, and that was kind of weird to see. We don't actually know how Gamamon looked, to the humans. I'm just assuming that that Gaomon looked different because the other characters didn't mention that he was different, or at least didn't mention that he was the same, rather. So that was kind of weird. So there were a few weird aspects, like I kind of wish we saw what he looked like there. I don't know. But in any case, those are my thoughts for this episode. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It was kind of a little bit weird in some ways. I like seeing Betsumon. I like the creepy aspect that Betsumon is just a creepy looking guy. But I just wish we had more there. I just wish there was more. However, the pacing was really good in this episode, and that's something I don't often say. There was just some good pacing in this episode. I don't feel like it felt rushed. I feel like that they told the story that they needed to tell, even though it was kind of like a quick resolution. At least they built on something that they'd already established, and that was the fact that Gaomon likes chocolate. It's okay for them to resolve something quickly if they use an established fact, like how in the hero and like with the face stealing episode, the face taker, hero doesn't say no, and they use that. They use something that they put in from episode 1. In this episode, they use the fact that Gaomon likes chocolate, and that's fine. I'm okay with them resolving them quickly for a good reason. So the pacing in this episode was really good. But in general, the episode itself just didn't feel like, I don't know, it really just kind of bothered me that we don't know what Gaomon looked like. That he was just, like, he can't have looked like Gaomon because the characters would have at least acknowledged that he looked like Gaomon. So it's kind of weird, like, we don't get to see that. I don't know why I'm so, like, caught up on that fact. Like, it's a well-established thing that Digimon can have multiples of the same species just existing. So that kind of felt weird. I just felt like they really did push out a lot of Betsumon magic, and the fact that Clockmon just showed up, I feel like Clockmon could have been removed from the last part of the episode, and it would not have changed anything at all. It definitely just would not have at all, and I don't know why he was there at the end to say, ha ha ha, yes. Oh, as I expected all along, this Betsumon is to blame for everything happening. He's been known to steal identities, and that's what he's done in this case. But it doesn't make sense because he didn't help his friend Gaomon when Gaomon was like, hey, somebody's replaced me. It just felt weird. But in general, good pacing for this episode. Definitely thumbs up for that. But for the rest of the episode, just not a big fan. But in any case, those are my thoughts on this episode. There were certainly bits I liked, and I do like as I said, the creepy, like, copy things, because it reminded me of the dream. But other than that, I don't really have much else to say. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!